You don't want to sit. No, I'm just right.
Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. This is the time and place for the regular school board meeting for the Marshalltown Community School District. It's Monday, April 17, 2023. Welcome to those of you here with us in person. Welcome as well to anybody tuning in and watching via the live stream. We'll do introductions for the folks here at the board table before we get going too much farther. We'll start to my left tonight, Karina Hernandez, Sarah Faltis, and Leah Stanley. To my right, Zach Wall and Bonnie Lowry. Seated here at the center table with me, Mr. Randy Denham, our board secretary, Dr. Theron Schutte, the superintendent of schools, and I am Sean Heitman. A couple of other announcements before we get too much farther. There's a pink sign-up sheet there on the speakers table. That's for anyone who's here to address the board during public comment time. Just a couple of reminders on that. You will be given 5 minutes to address the board. Iowa law prohibits the discussion of specific employees of the district or their job performance. Additionally, in accordance with board policy, board members may not respond to comments made so that we can comply with open meeting laws. Have I missed any announcements, Randy?
No.
Okay.
We were good.
With those things out of the way, would you all please join me in reading the mission statement of the Marshalltown School District?
We develop learners who have the knowledge, skills, and positive mindset to successfully pursue a meaningful future through personalized learning experiences.
And would you all please stand as you're able and join in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, we have one amendment.
Hi, we have added, and I apologize, I don't know the number,
4.05.
4.05 to the agenda today. It is a request for the $5,000 sign-on bonus for the bilingual positions in the dual language program. And I will explain that rationale for at that time. Thanks.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Move to approve.
Second.
Lowry, Faltis, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries 6-0.
Our first recognition is our new member of the team, Communications Director Abby Cook. Abby comes to us as a graduate from Sioux City East High School and Morningside College in 2021. She has a bachelor's degree in graphic design and mass communication. Most recently, she was working in the Mason City Clear Lake area, both as a marketing director, and for a year and a half, she served as the primary education reporter for the Globe Gazette. So we welcome Abby to our team, and if you'd like to share anything else, you're welcome to.
Yeah, first week has definitely been exciting for me. As Dr. Schutte has been telling a lot of people, it's like drinking out of a fire hose, but every second has been, super exciting for me. It's great to know the Marshalltown Community School District, and awesome experience getting to know everybody and learning this awesome community.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Next, we have some wonderful recognitions for some of our XLP students, and Ann Jackson from the middle school and Susan Fritzell are here, I believe.
We're going to use the school board student rep table. They seem not to be here.
You guys can just carry one of those mics over there if you want.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you for
Nope, you turned it off.
Thank you for having us again. I'm Ann Jackson. This is Susan Fritzel. Earlier this month, we took 14 students to the State Science and Technology Fair. These are some of my middle schoolers that attended. They won first place in the Behavioral Sciences Division. We're very proud of them for that. And they were champions of the fair, which sounds like first place, but it's third place because there's champion, reserve champion, grand champion. So, but still, excellent, excellent.
And this is Yesenia Alvarez Zamora's project. I don't know where she is. I thought she'd be here. She placed second in plant sciences, but also won a $5,000 scholarship from the NASA Iowa Space Consortium, and a trip if she wants to go to the Genius Olympiad in Rochester, New York. She'll have to explain this to you later, but she was basically testing different types of natural fertilizers on plants. She was growing plants in my classroom all year long, and discovered that worm castings and cow manure actually performed better for the plants than Miracle-Gro. So wants to take that, back to make it more sustainable for farmers in impoverished places.
Okay. Hi, my name's Ella Reynolds.
My name's Rory Piscatelli.
My name's Caitlin Bear. And this was our project, Crochet and Coral. We were asking whether including art would improve the engagement of girls in science lessons. We decided that art would probably, because it's considered more feminine, include more interest for the girls.
So in our project, we presented to every elementary school in the Marshalltown School District. So we went to 2 classes when we presented to them. And after we were done presenting, we sent out a Google form.
Our results showed that the girls were more engaged when art was intermixed in the content.
Do you have any questions for them?
Yeah.
Please ask.
So what grade levels did you focus on at the elementary?
We focused on 3rd and 4th graders.
What kind of art did you infuse into the curriculum to look at engagement?
We used this crocheted coral reef.
Okay, and what did they do with it?
We pointed out the types of coral we were educating them on in the coral reef so they could have a more visual representation, and we passed around, I think specifically the brain coral, so they could have something to hold and have a more tactile experience.
Great.
It was kind of an interesting day when you were over there weather-wise, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So
What
fun.
happened? You sure what happened on that day?
We got out at 12, and then awards were to be posted at 7, and then they got bumped up to 5, and then they were canceled, so they were given Wednesday the following week.
Yeah.
Oh, golly. A little nerve-wracking? Yeah.
Every day they asked, have you heard? Have you heard?
So while you were there, what did you have to do? What was the experience like at the science fair?
On the first day was special awards, so multiple judges would come around one at a time, and then we had like this whole presentation that we would give them about our project, and then after that one left, they would go and they would grade us, and then another would come, and then at the end of the night at awards, we would see what awards we had won. We had won one award as a group, and then on the second day, other awards or judges that came around for placing us in the actual competition. Mm-hmm. And then we found out the Wednesday after.
It was a little nerve-wracking because they knew they were finalists because they were asked to leave their board there. So that's why the next week they knew something was coming, but they didn't know what, so.
Good.
Congratulations. We're very proud of your accomplishment.
I wanted to add, I was here earlier in the year with my Advocate Award, and I just wanted to give you a brief update. So last year I had 2 science fair participants. This year I had 12. The point of the award was to serve students from underrepresented populations. 50% of my participants this year were from underrepresented populations. So,
Fantastic, thank you. We have a special gift from JBS, so Patrick, if you and Marguerite would like to come up. And our elementary principals, please. You just, you can sit or hold on to a mic, either way is fine.
So, hi Margarita. So the JBS and the UFCW, our local union, we have a multicultural fund, and this year we'd like to present a check for $6,000 so that can be equally split amongst the schools, to the school principals to use however they wish. As the HR director at JBS, I can tell you that this school district and working with this school district has been very, very good. Excellent staff, excellent mission, represented really well in the community, and we consider you a very valuable partner. And we've worked really hard at JBS we know that we have a workforce that changes, and trying to collaborate and make sure that we have good opportunities for our employees' children, along with other opportunities in the community. So this is a small token that we would like to present today, and more to come.
Well, on behalf of our elementary schools, many of which are represented behind you, we thank you very much. I know this was something that would happen periodically pre-COVID, so I was thrilled to get the call that you wanted to reinstate it this year. So we'd love to get a picture of you, and you're more than welcome to choose who you want to hand that check to, which will then go immediately to Randy Denham.
The business guy, right?
But thank you very much.
Okay. Margarita, which one do you like most?
That's the right answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Give it to us.
Here?
going around the town in my head.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Just keep your hold, it doesn't need to keep all this.
No.
Do you want to talk about National Volunteer Week as well?
Yes. This week is also designated as National Volunteer Week, and I think all of the board members received invites that if they're available on Wednesday, which is the 19th, from 4:30 to 6 in the auxiliary gym lobby, we'll be recognizing all of our junior achievement volunteers. We have a lot of volunteers throughout the district, but with junior achievement, there's somewhere in the range of 130 to 140 volunteers representing 30 to 40 different businesses across the community. So this was something, as we're in our last implementation of the year at Fisher, that we did pre-COVID that we're trying to bring back. And so we'd love to have any of you that are available come, whether you are coming as a volunteer or to thank our volunteers on behalf of the board. It's just a drop-in, drop-out, cookies, refreshments, and certificates for the volunteers as well.
Moving on to the consent agenda, we have minutes from the April 3rd board meeting. Dr. Ryan, any items or anything to note in personnel? No. Okay. Interagency agreements and contracts. We have an agreement with STC Dive Center to provide scuba instruction to MHS students. A purchase agreement with Solution Tree to host Luis Cruz and his team for the Providing Soluciones program next year. Data sharing agreement with Child Abuse Prevention Services, and special education agreements with East Marshall covering multiple students. Questions about any of those items? Open enrollments, we have 2 continuations in for the current school year, and then 7 for next year. Looks like 1 in and 6 out. Randy, anything to note in bills or the financial report?
No, not this month.
Questions for Randy about bills or the financial report? Gifts, grants, and bequests. We have the $6,000 donation from JBS and UFCW, which we just saw, and a donation from Alliant Energy Foundation in the amount of $5,000 for the Orpheum Museum History Room project. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Stanley Lowry, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Zach, could you grab the pink sheet? Libby. Yeah, come on up, have a seat.
Hi there, good evening. I am Libby Willer and I am a teacher at Lenahan, and I want to thank you for allowing the opportunity for staff to speak in regard to the proposed change to sick days. First, I do greatly appreciate the change to an overall bank of days that gets rid of differentiating between family and individual sick days. It allows for staff to use days in ways that work best for them. Not all family structures are the same, and the change in this classification is helpful for that reason. However, I do have concerns in regard to cutting the number of total allotted days from 30 to 20. I am aware that in most years and under most circumstances that 20 days is probably absolutely adequate. Yet I'm not sure that's the point, as we all know life happens. This year alone, I have used more sick days than in years past because I have truly been sick more. I have had COVID and influenza and other various illnesses that took a number on me and required me to be absent. I've needed to use more than any other year that I've taught because life happens. Sometimes family members have serious illnesses or require surgeries and need support. Sometimes we have our own unexpected medical situations that require us time to rest and recover, things we never expected, because life happens. To me, it seems that finding a way to incentivize using fewer days makes more sense than taking days away. It also seems to me there is a better way than such an overall dramatic cut if a change is truly necessary. Considering an option like a carryover of up to 30 days, potentially by giving 30 days the first year, dropping it down to 20 the following, with a carryover option of up to 30 total days. That alone is an incentive not to use them. I do think there are potentially other ways that you could incentivize not using days, a retirement payout, a yearly bonus or reward for so many days left in your bank, to name some general options. The unexpected can and does happen. There is peace of mind in knowing that if it does, you have days that can be used without consequence. I'm asking that you please remember when making a final decision on this matter that the reason it seems like a harsh reduction of well-established benefit is that we have always felt protected in that manner working for MCSD. We have always felt trusted as professionals when taking leave. We have always felt like our decision makers understood that we are human beings and that life happens. Please remember that it does and allow for that peace of mind that we've always had in the past. Thank you for your consideration.
Rachel?
Good evening. My name is Rachel Loopy, and as I said 2 weeks ago, I am back. I am here as a parent of 2 Marshtown Community School District students, and again, I'm stating I'm here as a parent. Apparently, there was some concern that since I am also a teacher at the high school and also a leader in the Marshtown Education Association, that I am not able to separate those roles and responsibilities. Frankly, I'm offended by that belief. Over the last 20 years, I have consistently separated those roles, and I have demonstrated that as well in meetings across the spectrum of my roles. When I am sharing information that I have gleaned from my role as a teacher or as a leader of the MEA, I state that explicitly. When I am sharing my views as a parent, I also openly state that. In fact, when I walked out of a meeting that I had in this building last Monday, I happened to run into Ms. Cook, our new communications director, and I was actually in tears when I left that meeting. And I would bet if you asked her, she would not have known that I was in tears. I welcomed her to this building, to this community, that I was excited that she was here, that it was a good opportunity to be here. And yet I had left that meeting in tears. I was able to switch off my parent role and turn into a teacher and supporter of this community like that. So again, I'm offended that if you can't see me as a parent. The last time I spoke, and again I'm here as a parent, I rattled some cages and ruffled some feathers. While that was not my explicit intent, I am pleased to have at least gotten a reaction. And more importantly, hopefully, the attention of the people who have the power and the opportunity to affect positive change for the children of MCSD. If the people who attended or watched the meeting were truly paying attention to what I said, the message is and always will be, quote, the teachers and support staff of these buildings are doing the absolute best that they can, given the circumstances they operate in. Those circumstances, in my opinion, are not adequate nor sufficient for the children of our school district. There are too many open positions for both teachers and support staff in all buildings, not just Linehan and Miller. I have 2 concerns that I'm coming with you tonight. I have a concern regarding the automatic 3-day suspension of students who film verbal or physical altercations at Miller. While I agree wholeheartedly that should these videos wind up on social media, then a suspension may be warranted. However, this is a minority-majority school district, where many of our students have been taught by their parents to record altercations for their and their friends' safety. My husband and I have spoken with our children about the need to document with video situations where they do not feel comfortable, as long as this is obviously not in locker rooms, bathrooms, where such things happen. By instituting this automatic or mandatory suspension, Miller is removing a basic tool of safety for not just our students of minority, but also all of our students who have been taught to protect themselves with a visual representation of what happened. My second concern is how is Miller going to work to improve their image in the community? My husband and I did meet with Mr. Glenn and others a week ago regarding my last appearance here. No matter what issue was raised, we were told or we felt that we were told that we were wrong or did not have the facts. I mentioned several times that there is a phrase, perception is my reality, and that there is a lot to that idea. I have lived, worked, and am raising my family in this community. I have been here for 22 years. My perception, based on numerous conversations with a large variety of people, and that meeting, is that Miller is not the place where I want my children or children I care about attending at this time. My reality is that I have a voice to hopefully bring a closer investigation into the current state of not just Miller, but maybe some of our other buildings as well. When I left that meeting, I mentioned I was in tears. I felt unheard and dismissed. After my husband came out, he asked why I was so upset. And I told him it was because I had held out hope. Hope is a dangerous emotion. It's very dangerous. I had hoped that I would be heard. My perception is that I was not. However, my reality is that I am not going to give up for the students of our district. I will keep listening to my friends, community members, anybody who wants to talk to me. I am available and open. I will continue to be the voices if they are not comfortable with coming forward. When I came here last time, I had so many of my friends tell me it's not a good idea. There'll be repercussions. And I said, I'm coming as a parent. How can there be repercussions on me as a parent? Yet, the perception was there were repercussions. I have hope. I will continue to have hope. I had hope when I walked first in the doors at MHS 22 years ago, and I had hope when I gave birth to my children in 2011. My goal is that my boys will attend Miller Middle School. That's my goal. My goal is that all children and all staff feel valued and safe. But I do not feel that will happen unless there are some difficult conversations occur and hard decisions are made. Thank you.
Stephen? Or Stefan?
Actually, I don't have anything to say at this time. Maybe other people would talk and so forth. The proposal for the $5,000 for the teachers and stuff like that, then I would have something to talk about. Are they going to talk about that proposal today?
It's on the agenda, but this is the public comment time, so if you have something to say.
Yeah, I do. Okay. The proposal for taking 5,000.
Have a seat, use the microphone so everybody can hear you.
Usually don't have a problem with people hearing me. I'm usually pretty loud.
Well, there might be somebody who's not here who wants to hear you.
I do have a question or concern with the $5,000 bonuses that are wanting to be paid. One of the concerns is that, A, you're paying brand new teachers $5,000 to get them. Great. Or you're doing nothing to keep the ones you already have that are bilingual. So a better proposal would be is to add, just like the different steps for the pay, is add a spot for bilingual where they get X percentage more because they're bilingual. That way you keep the ones that you get, and you can still attract new teachers by letting them know they're going to get paid more to be bilingual. Most businesses that need bilingual people pay them a little more because they are bilingual. That's all I want to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pam, you're up.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve at Rogers, and I'm enjoying it. It's been a great challenge and actually a lot of fun. Other way, girl. Just to point out Rogers Pride, thank you. So I'm gonna err on the side of being concise, which for those of you who know me, it's unusual. But tonight I'm just gonna briefly touch on great things happening, very briefly touch on where we've been, where we are now, and where we're headed, and give you time for questions. So I'll err on the side of conciseness, and if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. So I'll just quickly highlight there are a lot of great things happening. I tried to highlight 3 things that I think are important, that being behavior, and staff morale and student engagement. So last year when I started, I met one-on-one with every member of the staff for as long as they chose to meet. So sometimes it was 20 minutes, sometimes it was 2 hours. But I heard over and over and over again about the concerns about dealing with behaviors in the classroom and its interference with learning. So that was my number one goal, is to address that, and we've worked continuously throughout the year during professional development and during working staff meetings to address behavior. And the other day during, you can change it. The other day during an interview, one of the applicants asked, what's Rogers' number one success this year, which was a great question. And one of the teachers basically addressed what I see is really, like, we've been working on responsive classroom, but what's happening is the longer we do it, the more you see it permeating all aspects of the building. So she said that she observes that that they're able to express their feelings and listen to each other, and I think that speaks well to our continued focus on responsive classroom. I see a typo, sorry. Staff morale. So another top priority, staff morale, of course, is very important, and I wanted to make sure that I built relationships and ensured that I was able to maintain positive, high staff morale, and I think that it has been good, and the staff feel prepared to move forward with improving all aspects of Rogers as it impacts students. Also, perhaps even more importantly, they feel like they can and will be able to affect improvement, which is something that needs to happen for us. And then student engagement. So early in the year, we identified student engagement as a key need for our building. Obviously, having students engaged ensures they're more likely to learn. So we've focused professional development and working staff meetings on revisiting PSYOP strategies and also tying our professional development to the NIET framework. So where we've been is we have been designated by the state of Iowa as a comprehensive school. So that is based on the differentiated accountability system that the state uses to grade schools. That's where we've been. We've been with challenging behaviors interfering with learning and causing a great deal of stress to teachers. That will continue to maybe be a problem, but we will continue to address it. And we're moving from learning to application. And I think that with responsive classroom, it just keeps getting better and better. And I see it being more pervasive in the language teachers use and evidence of it in the hallways and on the playground and that sort of thing. Okay, this is where we are. So we are comprehensive. We have that rating. The Iowa Department of Education did an intensive site visit. We've been doing work with the NIET instructional framework, and we wrote a very in-depth improvement plan, and we will continue to embrace positive or responsive classroom. So with regard to the comprehensive status, I made reference to the differentiated accountability and and I'll add to that the Iowa School Performance Profile, which are intertwined. So just acknowledging that we are still at that comprehensive status, and we are technically extended comprehensive status, which is just extending our status as comprehensive, okay? So usually it's a 3-year cycle. Well, they've extended our time to give us more opportunities for improvement. Let's put it that way. So we had a comprehensive DE site visit, and we had the extended comprehensive designation afforded us again, I guess. And by the way, all the things that are underlined are links for the board if they choose to take a look at any of the things that I've included.
Pam, do you want to just kind of capture the essence of what the action plan is, or what are going to be the key focal points for that as far as?
Yeah, do you want me to do it?
You can just share.
Okay. So as a result of the intensive 2-day visit by the Department of Education, they delivered us a report, which is linked in here. And basically, they made 4 recommendations, and they were sort of overlapping recommendations. Fortunately, I felt good that we had already identified many of the things that they brought to our attention that the building leadership team had already identified as challenges. So one of the things that they identified is they felt that teachers implementing the CKLA Amplify curriculum, which is our literacy curriculum, they thought that teachers maybe needed to have more professional development around the effective implementation, especially as it applies to what we call the knowledge portion. The other, 2 and 3 kind of overlap. Basically, 2 and 3 are about addressing focusing learning, having more focused lessons, and having better student engagement, and using more PSYOP strategies and more methods for having students engaged in lessons more actively. And then number 4 is, which is my friend here, Claire Wing, who is our instructional coach, and she's happy that they want more focus on actually focusing on the coaching cycle. So the coaching cycle separate from the evaluation cycle. So this is where she observes and provides them feedback for improvement independent of any kind of evaluation. And that's basically the crux of our improvement plan. You can go. Yeah. I think everybody had time to read it. So I basically that's what I said. So those are basically the areas. The improvement plan is attached if you care to read it. I also attached at some place in the slideshow, I did attach the report from the department. And just for fun, I needed a brain break, so I just thought it was interesting that coaching teachers sticks out so much, and I think that's great. And this is our girl. She'll do it. Our woman, I guess. She's not a girl. And then this is just more about just continuing to embrace responsive classroom and make sure that there's evidence throughout our talking with students and throughout all of our instruction and learning. So it's a process. You don't just learn it and then you do it. It's a matter of implementing and becoming better with it over time. And maybe obviously where we're headed is focus on our school improvement goals, keeping up and catching up with district initiatives, a continued focus on behavior and more specifically professional development around that, and support around real extreme behaviors. And we need to address our chronic attendance issues. And then beyond that, it'll be a revision and addition of goals based on the data that we collect. What questions do you have about the things that I've shared, or anything else you'd like to ask about Rogers.
What is the difference between the coaching that is happening now to what is being recommended as far as a coaching cycle? Like what?
Well, do you want to answer that?
I can answer that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so currently it's really teacher approaching coach, happening with coaching cycles beyond the first year teachers and teachers that Pam might send to me to work with. But now every teacher will be required to go through coaching cycles next year. So that will be a big change.
Thank you. Great question. Anybody else have a question?
Throughout your implementation so far, you notice that the teaching staff is starting to view children differently because they're noticing that they're making better choices.
Absolutely.
What kinds of things do you think you've put into place currently that has helped the teachers recognize a change in behavior with regard to making better choices?
For the students to make better choices? Well, I think one of the very first things that I did is when I started my very first staff meeting, I said, when you have a problem with behavior, I will be there to support you. And somebody raised their hand and said, what does that mean? I said, that means when you call me on the radio, I will come to your door and I will deal with the behavior at hand. So it started out that I was just there all the time until I established that trust. And then what I started doing is spending more time talking to the teachers about, what can they do differently? So now they're not feeling the same level of stress. So now what can you do differently and then we focused on this in staff meetings and we don't have very long staff meetings, so we had working staff meetings, like problem of practice kind of thing, and talked about, these are the steps we take when we approach a problem. Here's how we prevent it, and then when it arises, here's how we address it. So now it's gone from just chaos the first month or 2 or 3 of school to now I'm like, what am I, sometimes I forget to even have my radio. Not that there aren't still things going on, because there certainly are, and we're short-staffed like everyone, but I feel like that has been the biggest change, and they see that students are expressing themselves. Yeah. Thank you, Bonnie.
So you worked on adult behavior to change student behavior?
Absolutely, absolutely. Any other questions?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to share what's going on at Rogers, and we're very proud of the work being done, and I cannot express how proud I am of the staff that we have and the hard work that they do every day. So thank you very much for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Where were you going to trip over each other? I'll go second.
Yesenia, are you ready?
I have one question.
Oh, sure.
So implementation starts next school year, and when do they come back, and I guess how?
The
DE?
Yeah. Oh, well, that's an interesting story, but, theoretically, it feels like we're running 2 kind of things. So we're working with the AEA and our school improvement person at the department. So these recommendations will sort of morph into all of our improvement goals.
Oh.
And so each year, we process, and each year we'll report back to them on our progress until we no longer have the comprehensive status designation.
3 years?
3-year designation.
3 years. Okay.
And I would just add, Shauna and I and Erica Fenders have been engaged also in the conversations with both Rogers and Anson, and both of those visits were more similar than different in terms of the types of recommendations made, and we really feel like a lot of those recommendations are great recommendations for us to implement across the district, different buildings, maybe at different places with some of the things, but I think a lot of what Pam's referring to will be systemically engaged in our professional development throughout the next couple of years as it relates to elementary for sure.
Are Rogers and Anson the only two schools on that list?
On the comprehensive
On the
list, yeah.
comprehensive list, okay.
I think we're ready now, Yesenia. And you do have to tell us at some point here about your plant project.
Oh. Yay.
Mrs. Fritzell told us that we had to tell you to tell us about that, so here we are.
No. Well, thank you to her. You missed that part. I'll go ahead with the report, but I'll definitely get you filled in on the plants.
Okay.
So recently, National Honor Society had its induction ceremony in the auditorium at the high school. On the right, there's 25 pictured students, and so just to have a little understanding, if you don't have a student that's currently in the high school or has been in the high school right now, in order to be inducted into National Honor Society, there are a few requirements. As part of the application, there's kind of a look on what involvement the student has. GPA is a factor. You have to have a minimum of a 3.5. A lot of academic aspects are looked into, even things as, attendance. And once a student has been inducted, they have to perform regular service hours along with maintain that minimum GPA. Okay, and so previously I mentioned that all the groups at the high school had made it to the state National History Day competition. And so the Marshalltown Historical Society invited the students to go and kind of talk to them or present their projects. Two of them were able to go. We have Landon Stanley and Jager Purchase pictured. Landon performed his project as kind of a one-man script on Marsha P. Johnson. And we have Jager Purchase doing a paper, I believe, on someone named Ottoman. I'll have to owe you on that. But April 24th is actually next week, and it's when state competitions will happen along with Envirothon competitions. So fingers crossed for all those students. Okay, and so the Lenahan School XLP program has something called a Continental Math League, which is a group of students who have been being gifted in the mathematical areas, and they just take a variety of tests and advanced algebra. We're talking like possibly algebra, geometry, mathematics that normally wouldn't be taught to students during that age, and the Lenahan XLP instructor was very satisfied with the results, and she sent out congratulations to Jaden Ted and Brooklyn Smith for their first place ratings. After this, we'll also have Math Bee. Oh, it says Math Bin, but it's Math Bee. It's kind of like a spelling bee in the sense that you just have to answer a variety of math problems, and in the end, you see which student did the best. Jaden was also the receiver of special recognition simply because his growth throughout the year was very noticeable just looking at his score. So we can see that the students do take this very seriously and they're passionate about it. They put a lot of work into these types of things. And so on the following slide is just pictures of those two, of all the students participated. Look how cute. And they got their candy. Okay, and so something new that I did is I found myself walking through the hallways at the high school, and I was looking at the display cases for all the art projects that were being shown, and I was very, very surprised on how good they were, and also that I hadn't seen them before. there's like a variety of technique and things being used. And so I want to see, how do you teach somebody to be an artist? When, you think about like the famous painters, they all have that kind of innate, what people think is innate talent or creativity, but you think about how they explore that and how can that be developed in an academic setting. And so I spoke to the art instructor, Mrs. Erickson, and so what she told me is that the way that the students are being taught is that they have a very kind of individualized approach. The student comes up with their own vision for what they want to do, and so they may not know how to do it, but they know what they want. That kind of end product might be a little fuzzy, but they have a vision for it. And so what the instructors do is really provide a lot of guidance. Okay, this is what the media that we're using can do, and this is how maybe we can change your vision or evolve it so that it can not only adapts to what we have, but it maybe even improves. And so she just mentioned that there's a lot of visible improvement from even just the beginning of the year to the end of the year, and much more if students just continue down that path. And a lot of the students there have different career outcomes that they wish to pursue. They're not all directly art related, but then you think about how developing such skills can help you not only as a thinker, but just to be as a more well-rounded individual. So just in the following slides, I have a few examples there. We have the use of color theory. I don't know what that means, but I'm guessing it has to do with the wheel there. And you can just see how, honestly, the slideshow might not do it justice, but there's a lot of effort and detail that's going into these works. And we have another one here. That hair looks fluffy. How do you get to make things look 3D when they're on a flat surface? And then we have monochromatic works, just doing everything with a shade of blue. And of course, making things look like they're shiny, like they're reflecting light. Just seeing that skill developed. And this is an example of a final art project. What students have to do is kind of research one of those famous artists. And instead of trying to copy or imitate their work exactly, they incorporate their own artistic style in order to create kind of their own piece derived off of that. And so on the left, we have the students' work, and on the right, we have the inspiration. All right, and that's it for me. Any questions?
I'd just like to echo what you said you witnessed in the showcases or display cases at Marshtown High School, because for those of us that had the opportunity to go to the art show, it was, it's always good, but it was exceptionally good, I thought, this year, and very challenging to try to recognize the most talented, because there were so many talented artists there, so.
For sure. Well, thank you.
You're going to skip out on telling me about the plants, aren't you?
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're interested. I spent a couple months working on it. With the Russia and Ukraine type of situation, fertilizer prices went up, as you know. Russia was a huge export of urea, and so what that leaves farmers with is kind of two options if they're, big time scale farmers. Okay, we either produce less and kind of keep the profit the same, or we produce the same amount and raise the prices. In either way, profit doesn't really waver, but when it comes to small time sustenance farmers, they don't have the opportunity to fertilize more, and also there's not a lot of times these people are impoverished and therefore just lack education in general. And so the idea is, okay, maybe if I save up on this and maybe not buy the students' uniforms, because in a lot of countries around the world you have to pay for the uniform for someone to go. You have to pay for everything for a child to go to school. And so instead of using that money to go send your kid to school, you're going to use it on your field and try to see if you can feed your family first. And so what I wanted to do is find we have a lot of natural fertilizers that are available. However, the benefits of them are not always exploited and they're not always known. And so just having some personal experience with my grandma, I was talking to her about planting and stuff, and she loves plants, but she kind of sometimes
some problems keeping them alive in Mexico. And so I'm like, oh, you should, well, do you look for the worms and stuff? You know, look for that good area. You walk into any first grade classroom, like in any elementary school, and you'll see that happy little worm poster. But she was like, no, you don't go to the worms. The worms are bad for the plants. There are people that avoid the worms or don't know what to use. And so I ended up using a variety of natural fertilizers like cow manure, worm castings, biochar, which was the center of my experiment last year, and then ended up comparing their performance in Swiss chard, which is kind of like this green leafy thing, simply because of its high iron content and calcium content. So I checked, okay, how much plant are we getting here? What's the quality of the color? How tall is it? And of course, I also sent it in a laboratory to get it tested and to actually see if there were differences in the nutritional content of the plant. And I wish I had some pictures here, but just looking at the difference between the two highest performers, which were the cow manure and the worm castings, the leaf difference was very noticeable. Worm castings had kind of a smooth, kind of light green color, and the cow manure had just like this glossy, veiny look, which I later found out after talking to some experts at the science fair that that kind of veiny look in the early development can indicate a slight iron deficiency. So I could talk forever, but for the sake of you, it's just finding out what combinations to use was kind of really my next step, and seeing that these things are available. And of course I compared them also to Burpee plant food, which is like supposed to imitate my chemical fertilizer out in the field, which chemical fertilizers will always be effective. They're made to be effective, but they're not always going to be available. And so what happens is that if you don't have enough to keep applying it as it should be, it's as if you had just wasted your money, because it's not going to keep working. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Congratulations on your recognition.
Thank you.
Yesenia, remind us of what you're doing post-secondary.
I want to be a doctor.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, I'm going to Grinnell College, which means I can't use the scholarship that I got, which kind of sucks, but I'm not exactly sure what I want to study yet. As for my bachelor's, I'm kind of looking into chemistry now, which doesn't make sense because it's the hardest subject for me, but like, I enjoy looking into what's kind of beyond what the eye can see, I guess.
Congratulations for setting goals and working towards them. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Who's doing the preschool?
I think they're only coming if there's changes, so start with Ronnie for elementary. Are there changes? Oh, okay.
The elementary handbook is the same as probably preschool. The only changes are dates. We've had to include, the new PD, et cetera. All the links, everything are fixed. The only one I'm waiting on is the transportation. So when that gets updated, we'll get that date in there. And once this is approved, then I'll get it to Ms. Garza, and she'll have the Spanish version ready for us. So no real major changes.
Thank you.
Any questions before we let him sneak away? All right.
Have my check back? We'll follow.
Johnny, you want to do the preschool?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Emily Banks updated me on this one. So I think the main change you're seeing are family nights are in person now. Following COVID, I think with COVID and the mitigation, they had moved those to virtual, but this year we are back in person and we're hoping to keep it that way. So you'll see that, and then the dates also have been changed to reflect the 23-24 school year. Everything else passed the desk audit, so we're good to go. Any questions? Nope.
Come on up.
All right. Couple things on here that we changed. One was removing contact information from a former staff member. Taking out If you scroll down here, all of them are in orange there. Yeah, food service piece about balances, and such kids don't have balances. We didn't need to have that in there. If you scroll down there to the parent involvement piece, we added some information related to our parent-teacher organization. And if you go down, there's one more. Took out information about a bell that we no longer use. We have a bell that rings at 8 o'clock and 8:20.
Questions?
That's it. It was nice seeing you, everybody.
Miller? Dave? Chris?
Hi, guys. Ours are super minor. Just a couple like add-ons. We just added that Remind was the district-wide communication. Just a little, we are updating our schedule to kind of move our intervention time and our lunch time around. So the length of the day kind of changed a little.
Well, the length of the day.
No, right.
How we're using that time within that.
Right. We've added 2 hours to our day. But don't look really closely on the math because the science teacher and the social studies teacher
Clock math is hard.
didn't do the best math. So, but this is what it's going.
We have a discrepancy in block 3 that we have to fix. It's 20 minutes shorter than all of our other clocks. So we'll fix that.
So just a small tweak there. And I just highlighted, obviously, Mr. Gableton is going to the high school, so we'll update that with Emily's name. The student dress has been tabled, but we're coming back to that.
Adding assemblies.
Yep. And we just added for safety and issues regarding crowded classroom space. We ask that all students who will have coats request a locker through the counseling office. And then that last one, Dave, you want to share that one?
Yep. So students who use their own personal technology to record altercations or interactions between students for the purposes of sharing through text or social media will be subject to disciplinary actions, up to and including suspension.
And again, lockers requested through the counseling office. And just a few tweaks to.
Right, breakfast, we don't
Where to
eat
get
breakfast in the cafeteria anymore. It's all grab and go
I think that's it.
and no DoorDash.
I'm sorry, I missed it. I know you said it. My computer's not working, so I was really trying to bring it up. Can you explain to me what you decided with cell phones? Didn't you just mention that, something about technology?
Yep, so each classroom is equipped, it's already in our handbook, classrooms are equipped with a organizer and students will be having them in there. And then it also says that anyone who's recording altercations or fights or anything like that for the purposes of sharing them on social media will be subject to disciplinary actions, up to and including suspension.
So to be clear, for the purpose of sharing, they would get disciplined, but if it's not for sharing, they'll probably not be disciplined.
Right, well, we probably wouldn't know.
Okay.
Right.
Yep. Case by case scenario.
Yep.
Okay.
Can you just talk a little bit about the rationale so that people understand that?
Yeah, what we have found is that, and if it really goes back to, it really became evident in our last district-wide SEL webinar where they were talking about how that cyberbullying, all of those impacts really peak at ages 12 through 14, which is our demographic. And we had a lot of students who were not only recording altercations, but encouraging altercations for the purposes of being able to catch it on camera and then chase likes on different social media platforms. And so that was really our attempt to say, prior to that, since they were not directly involved in the altercation, they weren't really facing any sort of consequences for essentially inciting those altercations. And so this has greatly curbed the number of altercations that we've had since we started working on that this year.
So you had on here already that students would be putting their cell phones in the organizer, and that hasn't really been happening
Because of COVID.
consistently.
Right.
So we are going back to that next year.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yep.
Well, and I think another thing to mention is Miller is fairly well equipped with video cameras, both
Absolutely.
inside and outside. And I know the tech department has worked with the Miller administration where there are gaps or if gaps are identified. So if there are incidences or issues that are happening at school, we already have means of capturing those with video and reviewing them. So.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. And thank you for approving that expenditure a year ago when we added a bunch of cameras to our space. So it's been very, very helpful.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
All right, awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
I don't
Jackie.
see, oh, there she is.
She sat behind the pillar for you tonight. Usually she sits behind the pillar and I can't see her.
Good evening. I think my changes are minor, but there are quite a few of them. Obviously, on the first page, we want to change the year of our handbook to reflect next school year. There's a little change on page 4 in the index. We changed conduct at athletic events to MHS events. You'll see why later. No changes in our bell schedule or emergency contacts during inclement weather. Then on page 11, there are numerous staff that needed to be updated. So that's reflected there, as well as on page 12.
Hey, Jackie, real quick on 12.
Yes,
You missed one.
I did.
You've still got Paulette Newbold as the board
Oh,
secretary.
my goodness. As many times as I've called Randy, I'll get that. Here's my lifeline. Okay. Randy was like, "It's okay." On page 15, we want to have a little bit more flexibility with the number of students that we'll have at the high school next year to have dismissals, not only for seniors, but potentially for juniors who are on track to graduation, who are going out and doing work-based learning experiences, or headed to the college to take classes. We strongly encourage that. Throughout, we started making more reference to board policy for our students, and in particular on page 17, we had a little incident this year, and I added that all records of assessments will also remain in the cumulative folder, because we were chasing some records this year, and just to make clear that that is not a record that is destroyed. Oops. Flip that too far. And then on page 23, again, we're just referencing board policy. We don't have to have the entire board policy, so a little bit less is more here. We don't need to have all those references for the board policy. Can be found in the board policy. Where's my page here? On page 34, again, conduct at MHS athletic events, referencing for all students. When we're at activities, all students are expected to be in good behavior. And one of the challenges that we've had is loitering around the concession stand, bathrooms, and other common areas where we're constantly telling students to be seated. And that students need to understand that rules are enforceable at MH events, whether we're at home or we're away. That they have to be good representatives of our school district. Then on page 39, you will also see an expression about the use of cell phones for the purpose of recording events to disseminate in social media. If you want me to add social media, I can. Examples include things like kids videotaping during fights, which has happened, and instead of going to get an adult to say, hey, there's this fight going on, can you stop it? So we've kind of cracked down on that as well. Then on the next page, page 40, more referencing about students loitering in the school parking lots during school hours. First of all, we do have a closed campus, so even if they are on dismiss and are returning, they shouldn't be loitering in their cars, possibly vaping, who knows. We should park the car, get out, get into the school, et cetera, or leave promptly as well. If they continue to loiter, then they're going to be subject to search. Again, also another board policy reference in here. Continuing to do that, we wanted to make it very clear that e-cigarettes are products that are illegal for students under the age of 21 to possess, and that there will be consequences, including a violation of the code of conduct. Suspension out of school, again, just a reference to the board policy, as well as vehicle search and weapons, again, reference to the board policy, open enrollment, reference to the board policy. And then on to page 47, for some reason, our students think that when they do credit recovery or summer school, that erases their academic ineligibility, which it doesn't. That 30 days is applied in the next beginning semester, whenever that occurs. So I just wanted to make that clear to our students, while we appreciate them taking summer school. We added girls wrestling in our activities section on page 50. And then one more chance to make sure that students understand that e-cigarettes, vapes, Juuls, and other tobacco products are a violation of the code of conduct.
Any questions?
Hi.
Hi. Do we have any policies right now for students, whether it be their GPA or their attendance? They can't participate in sports if the lack of, but can they still practice? Is there any policy that says they need to go to school or get their GPA up before they can practice?
There's nothing about the GPA, but if they do have to be in school half the day to participate in their activities after school.
Okay.
Are you referring to ineligibility
Yeah,
due to grades?
Correct. Can they still practice, or would we say you cannot practice, or anything in there that talks about that?
No, they can practice. So that 30 days after the end of a semester when they're ineligible, they can practice. They just cannot participate in, and that's an Iowa High School Athletic Association rule.
Okay.
But yes, they can practice. And in fact, we want them to go out for the event. We want them to practice. When they become eligible, we want them to be contestants because we want them to finish. So they have to finish the season in order to wipe out their ineligibility. That prevents going out for tennis for 30 days and then I'm done, forget it. I wiped out my ineligibility and now I'm good for baseball. So you have to finish the season.
It's a no pass, no play, so if they get one failing grade, that at the end of a grading period, then they'd be ineligible for 30 days from varsity competition.
And it's nice that they can do that. In the past, it used to be that you had to have participated in that sport before you could use it to wipe out ineligibility. But there's a lot more flexibility there, so you can participate in an activity that maybe you traditionally have not in the past.
I'm confused. What do you mean by that?
Let's say I'm a baseball player and I usually don't participate in a spring sport, but I failed something in the first semester, so I might go out for tennis or soccer.
Okay, so what does that have to do with your baseball?
Because then I get my ineligibility out of the way in a sport that I really don't care a lot about, so that when I get into baseball season, I get to play on my varsity events.
So let's say you failed the winter, like the January, okay? So you're ineligible for sports for 30 days.
You're ineligible for the first sport that you go into at that time, whenever it is. It might be not till fall.
So even if you waited till summer to go into baseball and you brought your grades up over for that second semester, you would still be ineligible for baseball. So you're going to be ineligible for the first 30 days of whatever sport you go into.
Correct. So if you're savvy, and usually a coach will usually catch that and go talk to the student and say, I really need you to go out for track. Run the season, even if you just run event, every time we have a track meet, just run one event, finish the season, then you'll be good for baseball.
Interesting. Okay. Never ever knew that.
And it is that, no pass, no play.
Well, no, I understood that if you don't pass your courses, you can't participate in the games. I never knew about this 30 days on a different sports thing. Okay.
It's gamesmanship.
All right.
A lot of times, you'll see, let's say it's a wrestler, and they become ineligible at the end of the school year, they might jump into cross-country. It's a shorter season, in order to regain the eligibility prior to wrestling season starting.
So otherwise, if they just went into wrestling without doing that, they would not be eligible to participate in any
For
of these meets.
30 days. Yep.
There's a
And besides
benefit.
it, it's good conditioning cross-country.
There's a benefit to that.
Yeah.
As well as the conditioning, but also having a relationship with a coach
I guess nobody
to help them remain focused on school. So there are some benefits.
No.
Right, we want them to be students first.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Yep.
Eric?
Good evening. I've got 2 handbooks tonight, so I'll start with MLA. Thanks. Okay. Really no major changes to the MLA handbook. Dates and personnel changes to be made. On page 11, I did have some questions around district policies around attendance, so I referenced that other district attendance policies also apply to MLA students, which includes our 9-day drop policy, et cetera. There was some confusion on that with one particular parent. Updated the high school athletic conference on page 12. I think the biggest change in our handbook is probably the updating of the open enrollment law. Because after we did the handbook last year, the state legislature passed the changes to open enrollment. So most of that language is new, so all the deadlines are taken out of there and things like that. Everything else that we have in this particular handbook is all references existing board policy and is linked to the current website that we have to reference people to that. So that way, as board policy changes, those changes then are reflected in our handbook as well.
Any questions about the MLA handbook?
Is that supposed to say parents and guardians may apply for open enrollment at any time?
Probably should say that, yeah. Okay, so for the MVA handbook, there are a few more changes. Right away on page 2, we're strongly considering an advisory program for our MVA students where they meet 30 minutes weekly with a particular homeroom teacher, which would help keep them more accountable and more on progress. So I think we need to add that. A lot of the language in here is to kind of help take MVA and transition it from the emergency pandemic learning kind of thing that we had to high quality virtual learning. So we're still really walking that journey as we move forward. So as MVA is 712 now, I took Ronnie out of the handbook because he was still getting occasional phone calls about MVA. So I'm going to remove his contact information. There's a lot of references in here to student progress and attendance, starting on the bottom of page 2. There's a statement I have requesting to add on page 4 that talks about MVA is not appropriate for all students. Students who are not succeeding in a traditional setting are probably even less likely to engage in a setting where there's no structure and support. We're getting a lot of, not a lot, but we're getting enough people who are coming to us saying, I just want to go virtual. Well, and when then you talk to them and you meet with them, what they're saying is, hey, I really don't want the school kind of pestering me about my child's attendance and their progress, just let them be. Well, that's not what a virtual academy is either. So, so there's a statement in here that says we may not admit them to MVA or they may be admitted to MVA on a 4-week trial basis, which gives us the flexibility to
again, not use MBA just as a place to hide out until you drop out. Again, more of this kind of language on page 5. Being a virtual student does not exempt students from Iowa's compulsory attendance laws. Students who are abusing their status as virtual students may have their devices limited or their hotspots disabled. So if they're not engaging in school, it's really not the role of the school to provide free internet to people who are just hanging out, you know. So we would want to try to turn off their hotspots or turn off their devices, and then when they realize those devices don't work is when they often reach back out to us, and then now we can have that meeting and bring a parent in and bring that student in and re-engage them and reestablish those conditions for participating in MBA. Lastly, a statement here on page 5 about requiring assessments that the state requires have to be in person. So while you can be a virtual student, you do have to show up for your in-person assessments. I clarified some of the registration and enrollment information, and as we get a welcome center, I may need to actually come back and revisit this a little more as some of that's flushed out. A note in here as well about we do have virtual students who do participate in school activities, just reminding them that those eligibility standards of the school that the campus that they would attend by their particular grade level still apply to them. Page 7, adding some statements in here about math and language arts courses may have their elective courses limited. Math and language arts are the two areas that came up in our data review around ESSER. Or ESSA, I should say, and the performance on some of our testing is because some of our kids are actually lagging in their progress in some of their language arts and math courses, so we want to make sure that our kids are keeping up on grade level progress on those classes. Statement about planning for post-secondary on page 8. Clarifying that our graduation requirements also include passing Algebra 1 on page 9. Notifying parents that we have an Edmentum Sensei app that they can use on their phone to immediately check their child's progress. And I believe that's it. In the second or third full year of this handbook will continue to evolve as we learn more about how our students are interacting with us at MBA.
About how many students do we have at MBA?
A little over 100.
For 7 through 12?
Yes.
Other questions? Thanks. And the transportation, there's no changes to it, right? Okay. Those were all for information presentation this evening. They'll be back in May for approval. Dr. Ryan?
All right, good evening, everybody. 'Tis that time of year. Every year after we finish negotiations and all of the meet and confers, I shift my focus to the employee handbook and appendices. The last 2 years, I put before the board the handbook and the appendices in June. And I really kind of reflected on that and wanted to do this more when our staff are, the majority of our staff are here and present, because I give this to all of the representatives and the unions, and I allow them time for feedback and suggestions, and they are more apt to be checking their emails while they're here working. So here we are, mid-April, going through this. The biggest changes, Appendix G is brand new. That is for our other salaried staff who just do not fit into any of the other categories, so they're listed up there. So like the nutrition supervisor at the very top of the first page, nutrition supervisor or the kitchen managers, all of those are some of our salaried staff, again, that don't fit into the other appendices. So that G, Appendix G, is entirely new. And then the change for all staff in the employee handbook itself is the change to the leaves. And so the history, we have always had separate banks. Now we're speaking to leaves that are related to sickness, so not personal leaves, not vacation, so illness leaves. And I apologize, I can't give you the page number off the top of my, yeah, that page 22 there. We've always had two separate banks. One bank of leaves for your family that you draw from, and then a separate bank of leaves for yourself. And the past several years, the secretary group has requested a bank that's, one bank of leaves that you draw from instead of two separate ones. It's actually also a shift that other districts have been making as well, going to one bank of leaves. And so we, what's in the handbook you'll see is putting it here in the employee handbook. Instead of having this in every single appendix, this would be in the employee handbook for all of our employees. It would be a bank, one single bank called an illness bank that includes 20 days per year. Now those 20 days could be used for you, could be used for your family, could be, however you see fit, that you would get that 20 per year. So in the past, you've only been able to carry over 15 sick days. With this change, you'll be able to carry over 20, so you accumulate, hopefully, faster to your max of 140. And that 140 we are not changing. We're going to keep that at 140, even though you could be accumulating quicker. The entire bank that you've had in the past, you've been building up this bank, carrying over the 15 per year, that has always only been allowed to be used for yourself. You could never dip into that bank for your family. With this change, we would be opening that entire bank up to use for you or your family. That's a pretty big change for us. I took a look at the data, and unfortunately I can only look at the past 2 years because prior to that we had a different absence management system, a different company, and unfortunately I can't tap into that data anymore. Once you stop paying the bill, they cut you off. So the current system that we have, I was able to look at the last 2 years of data, and I specifically was looking at certified staff. Most of our support, all of our staff except certified staff have always, I can't say always, I haven't been here forever, but have mostly had 15 days of sick leave and 5 family, so that equals 20. But I wanted to look at the certified staff because in the past they've always had 15 for themselves and then 10 for their family plus an extra 5 we do deduct for they're called pay the sub. So I wanted to look at, because this change would impact the number of days that they were given. In the past 2 years, not a single employee would have been negatively impacted by this change. In fact, this change, and any employee who's had to dip into those pay the sub days, that means they've used all of their family illness and now they're using the extra 5 where you have to dip into, and we take some out of your paycheck. I took a look at those people who had to dip into those leaves, and this change would have benefited them. It would have added more money to their pocket and they still would have accumulated more days. In addition, those individuals who had to go unpaid for their own illness would have benefited from this change because in the past, they were only given 15 days of sick leave per year. With this 20, it would have been an additional week. So for some of our employees, the data that I looked at for those who have had to go unpaid because they ran out of sick days, one of the employees, this change would have saved $1,801 before taxes. Another employee having this extra week would have saved them $1,200. So it's looking at the past 2 years, not a single employee would have been negatively financially impacted by this. And in fact, moving to that idea of one bank, all 20 carrying over, whereas in the past only 15, and this idea of opening up the bank to you or your family has big changes for staff that can be really beneficial for those needing the leaves. And the last thing I will say about the leaves before I take any other questions, everything else was pretty typical changes, is I'm still really proud that we're able to offer the 20 days for all of our staff. When I took a look at other districts and what they do, well, I can say the majority because technically it was over 50%, but most districts only give the legal minimum required of sick leave, which is 15 days. And most districts say you can have 15 days per year, and then they'll make 5 or 7 of those available for your family. And so they cap how many days can be used for their family, and the absolute total is 15. So we would still be giving our employees a total of 20, saying those 20 are how you see fit, but then again, opening that entire bank up for you or your family. Like I said, the other changes are all pretty typical, nothing really noteworthy. Any questions?
No questions. And I think that what you sent out to the employees after we spoke must have been helpful because I didn't get any more calls.
So I only sent, like I said, I have been working with the idea of going to one bank. I've been working with the teachers union for over a year. That topic kind of started, and I started sharing data with them over a year ago about how us offering basically 30 days was pretty unheard of. It is by far the most of any other districts. We started looking at the data. We started looking at usage. And with the support staff, I've also, been having the conversation. But I didn't send any information out to the support staff unions because they didn't request it, and they didn't think their staff needed it. But I did send that email to certified staff after I feel there had been some perhaps just further clarification was needed. So I did send that email, and I was really grateful for the responses that I did get back from individuals of support.
I think it was largely positive once they figured out what was happening.
From what I received, yes. But I know not every, change can be hard, and it is a lot to wrap your head around because upon initial thought, it may be that concern that, that feeling like it's going from 30 days down to 20 without the realization that you're carrying over more days, but also that entire bank is now. So for example, really quickly, the example I give is, you have a child who needs 6 weeks off for a surgery. With our current practice for our teachers, for example, they only would have 10 paid days of leave plus 5 where a part of their check was deducted for the price of the sub, the cost of the sub. So 2 paid weeks with 1 that's partially paid. With this change, they would have obviously the 20 days, but their entire bank. So now those staff members potentially are going to get now 6 fully paid weeks. It also helps individuals with paternity leave or, so it's just a lot to wrap your head around. And so I was hopeful that clarification was heard.
I think it was.
Thanks.
Nora, how did you settle on 20 days? I mean, what were you looking at for the total bank being 20 days?
So we always want to be better than average. We want to tout our district as, for a myriad of reasons, this is why you should come work for us. And when we looked at other districts, typically they are following state code, which says 15. And so we wanted to be better than that. And then when we also looked at the usage, I felt comfortable with the 20 because, again, I looked at the last 2 years and, if we're making such a big change, we want to see who's negatively going to be impacted. We don't want to make such a drastic change that, so many people are negatively impacted. And with this 20 days, we felt comfortable. And like I said, when I looked at the data of those who have had to tap into those pay the sub, even they would benefit. So that 20, we still felt like we were still really competitive, way better than average. In fact, there was only one other district that I found that offered 20. And so we just felt like we were better than average, and given our data that it was a fair number.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Oh, and I'm sorry, the only other thing to note, each group had different bereavement leave schedules. And again, that came because, leaves used to be part of negotiations, part of the contract. And so through negotiations, they all just kind of came with different bereavement schedules. But this change makes them all the same bereavement leave. And we took, of all of the groups, we took the most, generous. I don't really think that's the right word to use in this situation, but the most generous of leaves for the bereavement leave, which was the certified staff leaves. So now everybody will have a similar bereavement leave.
Yeah, I appreciate the standardization of the leaves where we're not, one of the things I was uncomfortable with sometimes as a certified staff member who worked with paras my entire career, or most of my career, was when things were not equal or not equivalent. So I'm really pleased that you're making this effort.
Thanks. I think this is the perfect example of something that's equal, but perhaps not equitable. It's equal in the sense that every single employee, if you're a permanent employee, you're getting 20 days. But one could argue it's not equitable in the sense that, whether you work 10 months or 12, these are the same leaves. But we have to remember that 12-month employees, we do have vacation leaves. While we would hope that is not the intention of vacation leave, it does provide another bank of leaves paid to tap into. And so it's equal in the sense that everyone will get the same.
And it's not quite as obviously unequal.
Thanks, Nora.
And so next board meeting, that will be back for formal approval or a vote. Okay, the next thing I have here. So we have had a 5th grade social studies position, that's a dual language position, open the entire year. We were unable to fill that. And so at a recent board meeting, we continued the $5,000 sign-on bonus that's associated with that position. After doing some reflecting and some conversations, we realized that is, that 5th grade position is part of that dual language program. We felt that it equitable that we also offer that, and I apologize that there's a typo there, the same equivalent $5,000 sign-on bonus for the bilingual teaching positions that where it's required to be bilingual for that dual language program. And so right now we have a kindergarten and a 3rd grade position at Woodbury. And so to be consistent, we are requesting this bonus, sign-on bonus for those 2 positions. And, the wording is that it's, those bilingual teaching positions in that program, that they would receive the sign-on bonus for the coming school year, to be consistent.
With some of these more flexible certification programs, is there some chances of getting more people certified?
So the Board of Educational Examiners is offering more for world languages. We have not been successful in picking any of those individuals up. We are working with the Department of Education in potentially bringing in teachers from Spain. Mm-hmm. If they are a possibility to bring on, we have it's a very competitive field. It's not only is, for these lower, a lot of times those endorsed in Spanish and comfortable with the language are teaching in Spanish. And so for these positions, you have to not only be bilingual, but you have to be endorsed for example, elementary teaching. For that 5th grade social studies position, the difficulty there is, again, not only that you're bilingual, but that you're endorsed properly to teach social studies. So it's this dual issue with needing the language competency, but also the proper endorsement. But to answer your question, yeah, the Board of Educational Examiners is opening up the doors. We are just unfortunately not seeing individuals walk through it, I guess.
So Nora, to clarify, we had a 5th grade social studies position at Lenahan that we already approved a signing bonus for.
Correct.
And what you're saying is, instead of just having that apply to that one 5th grade teaching position, you're coming back and asking us to approve that for anyone in the dual language program at Woodbury, a sign-on bonus for any new teachers hired into the Woodbury dual language program.
And at this time, we have 2 positions. I do not foresee any others, but just in case there are, because contracts they were already due, and we already are aware of who's returning. And these are why we have the 2 positions. But there are extenuating circumstances when we do allow people out of their contract, medical reasons. There are sometimes we do let people out of their contract. And so the way that it's worded right now is just in case for some unforeseen circumstance, it would be eligible for that program as well. But it would be new teachers coming in for that dual language program. Right now, it's 2 individuals, but it's written as to extenuating circumstances in case we had any others open up.
The one opening that we've had for 2 years, or as of last year, was at Miller, right? For social studies and language arts.
You're right. I keep saying 5th grade. It is not 5th grade. I apologize. Thank
Okay.
you for clarifying. No, it is is it 7th social studies? I apologize. Yeah, thank you. It's not Lenahan. I'm sorry. It's both 7th and 8th social studies? Thank you. I apologize for misspeaking. I don't know where I came up with 5th grade. And that one is going to be probably trickier to fill again because of that specific endorsement that's needed, but we're hopeful.
So most of the sign-on bonuses that we've approved have been for roles that we haven't been able to fill for multiple years. Is that the same situation as what we have here, or?
These are 2 brand-new openings that we did not have last year. These were filled until this year when contracts were due and teachers are leaving the district. So these are new positions. The reason why, and not all of the current $5,000 sign-on bonuses, not all of them were open last year. For example, we have the FCS teachers and industrial tech teacher. So this is not a similar ask as that 7th and 8th social studies. The reason why it's being put forward today is because it's similar in the sense of if we're bringing on a specific skill set that we need for this dual language program at the 7th and 8th grade, we'd like to have it at, for example, like I said now, at the kinder and 3rd. But this was not, these were not open all year, so it's not similar in that sense.
Well, and I don't think that sign-on bonus has been approved for just positions that were unable to be filled. It was for positions that were difficult, that were harder to fill, right? That's been my understanding anyway.
Yeah,
Historically difficult to fill, not necessarily that we had not been able to fill them.
Both are accurate. They were both of them are true. Positions that we we were not successful in filling, plus some that are unfortunately, the list of difficult to fill positions is, by the Department of Education, is growing daily, but historically, they've been, extremely difficult, like the industrial arts. The number of individuals graduating from those programs is minuscule.
Originally, we focused on particularly hard positions to fill, special education particularly, and then this fall, we asked permission to offer for any of the unfilled positions, of which between special ed, regular ed, whatever, we had around 15, I think, this fall that were unfilled from the previous year, some of which weren't filled that year also. We're using ESSER funds to support this, which are one-time money, short-term money. It's designed to do things like this to help with filling positions, and I would again say that based on feedback from our employees, particularly teachers, the number one stressor that they had last year was the number of times they had to be pulled from their preps or their meeting times to cover for other teachers. So as Rachel shared during the open session, filling these positions is kind of mission critical for people, and I would say towards retaining people as well. So.
And I appreciate you mentioning that it's ESSER funding, because yes, ESSER, they're, earmarked specifically for recruitment. So a lot of districts are trying to be creative in the sense of sign-on bonuses, and that is temporary. That money does have an end date, and so this is one of the uses that we would be using it for.
When you speak about doing things like differentiating pay for different people, that would be more of a negotiated type of issue that would need to be addressed during negotiations.
And an ongoing expense that could not be
And it would be an ongoing expense,
the current fund.
Correct.
Zach?
Hi, Dr. Ryan. I just want to implement, I think what you guys have brought to the table in the past when we talk about this is definitely for staff members that have been here a long time. Anytime we hand out or not hand out a bonus, but a hiring bonus or hiring incentive, is just keep in mind, if this is correct, that they have to be in our district 3 years. So an example is if we bring them from Spain or wherever, they stay for 2, they have to pay back part of their pay, correct?
Absolutely, yep.
And I broke that down, and it's basically $140 a month, right?
I'll trust your math.
Yep. It's $140 a month it cost us by these incentives. So.
And I will say another thing that I have to commend Dr. Schutte on, because I believe it was his idea, is for all certified staff new to the district within their first 3 years, we offer up to $2,500 for moving reimbursements. So if they're coming to town, we offer up to $2,500. So if they need a U-Haul or boxes or things like that, that's another one of those things which is great and universal. But when we have such a tiny pool, if none, this might be an additional thing, hopefully, that would make people want to come here besides our beautiful smiles.
Well, it does make it easier to relocate, especially if you're coming from Spain.
Well, and the board has approved with one-time and/or categorical funding us continue to provide a retention stipend with teacher quality as well as with ESSER funds for this year, even though the governor did not continue that effort. She started for select teachers last year. And then we also, have made provisions for comping people for 2. Basically people aren't having to work 2 days that they were contracted as far as teachers go. And in lieu of that, we're paying a 2-day per diem for the other employees that otherwise would work. So it's not as if we haven't made provisions for our employees in that regard.
And I'll say it's kind of hard to wrap your head around when we say 2 days, basically 2 days of 2 days where they're getting paid and they don't have to work. Like, how much money is that? I mean, some of our staff, their per diems are over $400. So for some individuals, 2 days is, I would argue for, 2 days is quite a chunk of change when we're talking salaried staff.
Any other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to approve the $5,000 sign-on bonus for bilingual teaching positions in the dual language program at Woodbury Elementary School as presented?
So moved.
Second.
McGinnis, Lowry, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amy?
Hello. As you heard a little earlier, we talked a little bit about the additional cameras in the middle school and how they've been pretty helpful in the ability to see things in the nooks and crannies and in places where there just weren't cameras before. I am here to ask to be able to get proposals to do the same thing for the high school. So what the request for proposals is asking for is more than what we did for Miller. It's a bigger school, and the cameras are a little older even than what they were at Miller. So we are asking for about 25 new cameras. And with this system, remember, we can pull in our old cameras into what's called the cloud connector, which you see up there. That cloud connector that we would need for the high school is significantly bigger than what we got from Miller. So I do expect that this proposal will be a bigger proposal than what we had from Miller, but that cloud connector will pull all of our district cameras into it. So it won't just be for high school cameras. This proposal would take all of our cameras in the whole district and make them be on one system, which was the goal all along. So this would sort of be our last stage. That doesn't mean we wouldn't buy any more cameras. What it means is we'd be set up to switch more and more cameras over to the high-quality AVA cameras as our Avigilon cameras start going down. They are 10 years old. I think that this is an affordable and effective way to do things, and it's also very secure and user-friendly. So, the other part of this, that's the camera portion, are to add some access controllers to doors. So if you've been to the high school, there's the whole west bank of doors at the entrance there in the west that you have to call a secretary and she'll come and let you in. In conjunction with Todd, we'll be doing a door project for both those west doors. Now, it won't replace all of those doors. It'll replace some of the west doors that are facing north, and that's where we put a video intercom reader where you can push the button and the secretary can let you in once she's figured out your reason for being at the building. So that'll be on those doors, and then on the staff student doors on the east side, that main entrance from the parking lot there. So this would include cameras for the high school, a system that integrates all of our cameras in the district, and door access for the high school is what I'm asking for with this.
Questions?
So you're asking just to be able to go out and get the bids? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, after this, I'd post this for bids. I think it's about 2 weeks from now, and then hopefully have a proposal for you in May.
Is there a motion to approve the request to make a request for proposals for security camera and door access project at the high school as presented?
Move to approve.
Second.
Faultus Wall. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
6.01 is the athletic complex or the stadium complex shade structure. Built within the contract was all the foundation work for this plaza area that would be on the southwest side of the stadium. It's that grassy area where oftentimes we were shooing kids out from playing football and that sort of thing. So that's going to be a nice plaza area that will be across from the existing concession stand, but then also adjacent if we're fortunate to be able to get a tornado-safe team room complex with a new concession stand down the road. The shade structure itself, we had chose to seek quotes outside of the project because we knew there would be a local vendor that could provide it, similar to the tennis court. So through Sourcewell, which we're subscribed to a procurement company, that we're able to get a competitive bid from Boland Recreation here in Marshalltown. So the recommendation would be to approve the shade structure at the cost of $72,854.72.
Questions?
So where is this to be located again?
Beyond the southwest corner of the track, essentially. It's the grassy area that between where the boulder was leading into
the track and the concession stand?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
At the fourth
Okay.
corner.
Yep.
At the
Okay.
fourth.
There's like
Turn.
picnic tables there currently. Well, there were picnic tables there. They've probably been moved by now.
The project is going to be all paved now, and like I said, kind of like a terrace.
That'll be landscaped.
Oh, nice, yeah.
It'll give a nice place if you're coming from the concession stand, actually.
Okay.
So there's benches included? Was that already in the plan to do, or is that?
No, but we'll probably just use some of the multitude of picnic tables we purchased during COVID that sit in front of the high school.
Oh, okay.
And budget-wise, where are we looking at taking these funds from?
Well, it'll be part of owner expense in relationship to the project, but there is some potential sponsorship for this as well.
And I know you've addressed this at other meetings, but I've been asked it, so could you just kind of quickly explain where the money for this entire football project is coming from?
Yeah, essentially it's coming from sales tax. When we when we went out to bid a few years back on the 2 air conditioning projects, we had bonded against the sales tax for $10 million. Those projects came in at $8 million in terms of what was bid out. So that freed up $2 million, which then provided the opportunity to do a smaller scale project of this nature. It's not small, but it's smaller in comparison to some other projects that we also would like to address down the road. So, but all of it is coming from sales tax.
But it's money that we already had, we're not having to go out and.
Correct.
Yes, this is from the remaining bonds left over from the previous HVAC projects. And Bonnie, to answer your question, this is coming from the project fund still. Keep in mind that with that 6.4 million in that budget, there was already a contingency built in. So there's potential this comes out of the contingency funds. If we happen to meet that, we with our certified budget have freed up some sales tax dollars next year to cover any potential overages of the budget. We've received donations for the scoreboard. That's essentially paid for at this point. So that helped offset some of the costs as well. And then I know Mr. Isgrig is working on additional donations and sponsorships for that. So, and then as Dr. Schutte has referenced in prior meetings, there is also the availability of some Pearl funds if needed to help cover the cost of the track.
Got it. So we have an idea.
Yes.
Got it.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the purchase of a shade structure from Bowling Recreation to be installed at the Marshalltown High School Athletic Complex in the amount of $72,854.72 as presented?
Move to approve.
Second.
Lowry, Wall, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0.
The next item is also a stadium-related item. Once we approve the contract, or to award the contracts to the general contractor and such, within that contract, but at owner expenses to do soil testing. We had some preliminary soil testing done prior to, when we were developing preliminary cost estimates and design. Now we have to have more substantive soil testing done, as we did on the tennis court as well. We had, FEH had received 2 bids on our behalf. The bid that they are recommending we accept, which was a couple $1,000s more than the other, is from Terracon, and the rationale for this is the difference in cost would not outweigh the benefit of having the same company that has been doing our soil testing, both for this stadium project, the tennis court project, Roundhouse Phase 2. We've got some unique soil situations and stuff, and it would be more beneficial to have someone that's familiar with our site than to have someone come in from scratch and basically have to start over, in their opinion.
Questions?
And Dr. Schutte, would we have to, if this grant gets approved with the tornado shelter, would we have to hire them again to come back to do the same that area? Would this all be in there also?
I would say that they will probably have to do some further testing there, yeah. There has been testing done in relationship to the grant application, but there would probably be further testing that would need to be done.
Well, and then-
Todd approaches.
Then to kind of add on that, some of that also, not only do they just test the soil, but some of those areas, they also do compaction testing also. So many of those, especially like the field or even a building, they've got to put so much fill in, especially if it's disturbed ground. Terracon would come in, check that, add more if needed, and work through there. So they do help with a lot of that testing. I've worked on many sites where the guy's there all day waiting for you to put a few more inches of fill on so he can check it and see if you're okay to add more. So, yeah, that's another reason for them. So we'd probably have them on any of our bigger projects in some form or shape. They would be there.
And I would say that the greatest potential for significant change order is related to this, and that if they deem it necessary to do significant fill beyond what is already there, they're not anticipating that just because of it being used for years, as a field. But I know that when having done this project previously, the degree to which they're going to have to prep the foundation for the field turf is usually the biggest unknown on a project like this. So we'll be able to rest a little bit once they've made those determinations. So,
Other questions? Is there a motion to approve the contract with Terracon for special inspection and construction testing services in an estimated total scope fee of $34,476 as presented?
So moved.
Faltus Hernandez, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And if you haven't noticed, they're really going to town out there. Got quite a bit of the asphalt. I was down today checking up on them, and yeah, they was tearing up the asphalt just outside of the concession area today. Most of the track's gone. Yep, so.
yeah,
yep,
they were
moving
there
right
all
along.
day Saturday and half the day Sunday, even despite the weather. There was work going on, so that was encouraging.
And I expect well, I bet we'll see more of that too.
Yeah.
Because they're really getting at it, so.
Yeah, they're go-getters.
Yeah. Thanks.
Policies.
Yeah, we have one policy coming back for a first reading, 505.5, graduation requirements. Leah presented this.
Yep.
And we have not made any adjustments since that initial review, so I'd recommend approval and waive the second reading.
Questions? Not, I'll take a motion to amend 505.5 and waive the second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Faltus McGinnis, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Karina, you had a bunch.
Like all the same one.
There was a little bit of repetitiveness in there as I reviewed them, yes.
A lot of numbers, have the same numbers. Okay, so 506.1, education records access. There's many changes, but a lot of them are to update to align with ISB. So, go to first reading.
Okay. Questions about 506.1? All right.
506.1 R1. Use of education records regulation, no changes other than updating the title and the legal references. So marked as reviewed.
Okay.
506.1 E1, request of non-parent for examination or copies of education records, no changes, marked as reviewed. 506.1E2, authorizing for release of education records. No changes, marked as reviewed. 506.1E3, request of hearing on correction of education records. No changes, marked as reviewed. 506.1E4, request of examination of education records. No changes, marked as reviewed. 506.1E5, notification of transfer of education records. No changes, marked as reviewed. 506.1E6, letter of parent regarding receipt of subpoena.
Subpoena.
Subpoena,
Subpoena.
Subpoena, okay. No changes, marked as reviewed. And then 506.1E7, juvenile justice agreement. No changes, marked as reviewed. And the last one is 506.1E8, annual notice. Our policy aligns with ISB, but also it includes references to our students' directory and informational policy. So it needs to amend the directory information since we just recently updated those. So mark as first reading to amend.
So 506.1 and 506.1E8 will come back. The rest will be marked as reviewed. Okay.
We'll be saying 506 all night.
All right, Dr. Schutte, you want to talk about the July meeting?
Yeah, as you'll recall, we have one board meeting in July similar to January, and it was originally scheduled for Monday, July 17th, and I wanted to ask permission to move that to Monday, July 10th. The primary reason for that is that Shauna and I and Allison Wilson, Allison through Mike had written a grant to the Institute for Family Engagement, I believe, or something like that at Harvard, and the grant was accepted, and so we're supposed to be in Boston a good portion of that week.
Seems like a reasonable request. Is there a motion to move the July meeting from July 17 to July 10 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Wall Faltus, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Abby, do you have anything for us that you'd like to share during the communications time?
Not at this moment, no.
Okay, maybe next time. Looking at reminders, Jan, you are up for policies next meeting. As Dr. Schutte noted early on, there is the Junior Achievement Appreciation Wednesday from 4:30 to 6. Our next meeting is May 1st. Franklin will be presenting, and that would be the final school presentation of the year. Committee meetings upcoming, those, as we're nearing the end of the school year, those will all be coming to a close as well. Speaking of committees, Bonnie, here, you're going to share
Yeah, I am.
your experiences from the National School Board Association.
Going to enlighten you all. It was a really good experience. You know, when you go down to a national conference by yourself, and you're not sure who you're going to see there, and you're not going with anybody you know. And on top of that, you're presenting with 3 other people that you don't know. However, you've put together a PowerPoint together, so you know the content by which you're going to present. The conference was held Friday, March 31st through April 3rd, and Friday the 31st was a pre-conference. Many national conferences have pre-conferences, and I just went for the conference part. So I was Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And it was held in Orlando at the Orange County Convention Center, and there were approximately 7,000 people involved in this conference. So it was huge. Each day they had a keynote speaker, and for the most part, they were pretty good keynote speakers. The Saturday was the first day of having a keynote speaker, and it was Janelle James from Abbott Elementary, the principal of Abbott Elementary. She is a comedian. And I will say, she admitted up on the stage, she knows nothing about being a principal. She knows nothing about school. She just kind of reads her lines and looks in the camera. And so sometimes her unethical behavior on program, it was questioned at this particular conference. We had a bunch of educators, school board members out there and superintendents. And so they said, well, I just tell them, if somebody said to you, you're not real serious about the job. She goes, I'm an actress. I'm not a principal, so just suck it up. I just do the lines. And so that was kind of an odd opening keynote speaker.
Yes.
But I thought that was kind of odd. However, Sunday, it was Jenna Hager. She's the co-host of NBC's Today Show. She's also a past educator, and Barbara Bush, her mom, of course, was an educator. Awesome. It was a great presentation. She really hit the highlights of education and the importance of education, and being sure that good decisions are made for your district so that students can excel. And then on Monday, we had, I'm not going to say his last name right, but Adam Scher. He's the founder of Siri. He's an engineer, and he sold his business, his company, to Steve Jobs. And so he's into AI, artificial intelligence, and it was awesome to see the growth of AI and what's coming out and what he's predicting is going to come out, and how to use that in the classroom. Rather than be afraid of it, how do you use that in the classroom? And we have a lot of virtual learning going on, but also the 3D, help me, Shauna. Virtual reality going on right now in the district. And so a lot of that stuff, and how to build things, and how to, it was just amazing. It was really enlightening, and that was really nice. That was on the last day. Each one of the opening sessions, they had student representation, and they did something. So, the very first day, they had a student singing the national anthem, and the JROTC, the JROTC, from Orange County Public Schools, from Freedom High School, they presented the colors. And then we also had from Florida, St. Cloud School United Cheer. They were representing Special Olympics. And so all of the cheerleaders were of special needs students, and it was just wonderful. They were a crew of about 25, and it was just, they did an amazing job, and it was a lot of hooting and hollering going on out there. Another day they had Pans of Steel Drum Band, so they did calypso vibe kind of music, and they were from Washington State. And it was really amazing. It was nice. They had cameras up, and boy, those kids can multiple mallets and just go into town on it. So it was really fun. And the last showcase of choral of students was a choral group from New York, from Freedom High School in New York. Boy, were they accomplished. You'd never know that they were students. They must have practiced a lot of hours, because it was just their niche, and they were really into it. So each general session, then we also heard from leaders in the National School Board Association. And then they also introduced directors from each state. So that belonged to the National School Board Association. And so Iowa wasn't represented, sorry. So anyway, but they basically shared success stories from different districts, and so it was nice to hear those things. The sessions that I attended, each day they had a general session, then they had multiple sessions that you could choose from. Well, my first session was the role of local school boards in promoting students' social and emotional well-being, lessons from across the country, and that was the session that I presented. I presented with somebody from Connecticut, somebody from Massachusetts, and we were also supposed to have somebody from Montana. And the gal from Montana was going to do it remotely, and believe it or not, she forgot. And so they couldn't get the Zoom set up anyway, so we were saved. And so we just kind of covered her slides, but it was great. We had an hour, it wasn't enough time, people hung out afterwards. That night, after our presentation, Board Docs had a gathering at City Walk, and they had set off this whole portion of City Walk where it was just a convention attendees. And folks were coming over to the table, and, well, Shai is from Massachusetts. He and I hung out that night. And so they would come over to the table and just talk to us about our presentation. Say, you guys need to come back next year, and you need more than an hour and a half. I mean, more than an hour. You need an hour and a half or 2 hours to go through your presentation. We're just going, thank you very much. So it was nice. Another session I attended was effective board communication, enlightening. We follow many of the very same protocols, talked about having committees and participating in what decisions have to be made at the district level, and then how do you communicate those out. This one I thought would be really good. Don't wait for a crisis. Proactive communication tools to foster a safe and supportive school community. They really didn't, in the narrative, they didn't talk a lot about it being a sales job to buy a product. But it was for Navigation 360. And they do have a lot of interesting things that would make communicating with parents and the community really easy. Whether it's things that parents need to know about that were mishaps throughout the day, or if it's things that upcoming events or really good things to celebrate in the district. But that was a good session. I also went to district-wide implementation and successful expansion of Spanish immersion. This particular group was from the state of Delaware. Our people could go and present at this particular conference with what we're doing here. The caveat being that this school district in Delaware has 7 elementary schools, and they implemented this program at all 7 elementary schools, not one. And so it was interesting, the conversation about getting teachers from Spain. That's exactly what they do. They bring in international teachers, and they pay for their visas to get them here. And then once they're within the state, then they have to become certified with whatever teaching credential they need in Delaware. The school district does not pay for that. They have to have a commitment to pay for their education. And then they do have a commitment of X number of years to be there. So it's just real interesting. So this next year, they're going to expand into the 7th and 8th grade. And one of the things that I had conversation with them about afterwards was the challenge of finding highly qualified teachers to put in those classrooms that are bilingual. And so they had thought about that, but I think they're really looking at their international teachers to help fill that spot for them. And then we also talked about when they get to the high school level, maybe that's the time, well, because that's what we do here, maybe that's the time you start working on a 3rd language. By that time, you know, the English is there, the Spanish would be there. Now it's time to work on that 3rd language and become trilingual before graduation kind of thing. And also talked about the fact that we've implemented a Spanish class for Spanish speakers also to keep that fresh kind of thing. So that was a really, probably the best session that I went to, but it was, like I said, I think our folks could go, and lessons learned to share. They would be good presenters here because they've got a lot of background knowledge and they've gone through a lot of growing pains. So I think it's good. The other little caveat that happens after you go to a national conference, there is this product from the company Robley. And I get an email from them now every day because they have effective and cost-efficient way to send newsletters and emails to parents and community. And they would sure like to set up a conversation with me, a phone conversation, to see how they could help our district. And so I haven't blocked them yet, but I just kind of delete. Anytime I see Robley, delete. So anyway, but thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for asking me to go do this. It was, it always renews and refreshes your energy to be able to go and learn new things. Being a lifelong learner, it is good. And being able to talk education, since that's my background anyway, that was just awesome. And I would just say that Shai is a he, and he's from Israel, and he got his citizenship in 2017. So he brought a whole different feel to this whole conversation, and he was a good person to hang out with, and so it was good. So thank you very much, Theron, and Matt's not here, but asking me to do that, and it
Yeah,
was a
thanks
good
for
time.
representing. This was kind of a continuation of Matt's presented before on the work that we've done as part of the SEL cohort through AESA, and then I've served on a panel, and then this year they took it to the next level, which was hearing from board members at the National School Board. So we'll have to take a close look at what ISB's new partner organization, because I know that they too got a conference off the ground this year, I think also in Florida, but if any board members are interested in just simply being attendees too, we can take a look at that and arranging it. It is a good experience, and especially if multiple board members go together. And
That would be really nice if at least two people would go together. But I would just say that Shai was awesome. I mean, we weren't at the same hotel, but it was easy to meet up. Thank goodness for cell phones. There's no way you'd find each other if you didn't have a cell phone to say, hey, I'm at the food court, standing by. Okay, I'll be there. So anyway.
So, question then, is anyone going to the IASB Summit on Student Success next week? Okay.
Yep.
So, most of us are going. Several of us are going. Okay.
We might want to maybe look at carpooling. That would be something to arrange.
See how we want to.
Yep, how to get there.
I haven't seen session registration. Okay. I sent information to Gabby, but I don't know that I know what I'm signed up for. Did you get what you're signed up for? Okay. Maybe it's in my email.
I think they sent it to my personal email for some reason. So you might check your different email.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if whatever they have my personal set of my school one.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you can't find it, just reach back to Gabby and see if she can.
Okay.
She may have it, or we'll find out for you.
That was the beginning of March. I remember seeing it.
Oh, that's when you got, it was that long ago?
It's been a while.
No, no.
Let her know what
Yep.
we wanted to be a part of.
Okay.
Like calories and weight.
Yeah. So I did that. I just don't remember if I got it.
I don't think there's been anything that's come since then saying you're in this session.
That's
If
what I was
no,
asking. That's
no,
what I was asking.
I haven't
about.
seen
You're
anything
signed
anyway.
up for this. Okay.
Whenever you
Okay.
told her you wanted
I think
to
I
go,
have.
that's where you go.
But yeah, I
Oh,
think
well, that's what I'm assuming. I just was looking for. Okay. All right. Thanks.
no, that one occurred to me too while Bonnie was talking. Was like, hey, that's coming up.
I know. I had to look at it on my calendar
Yeah.
to see when it was.
What have we done this evening to improve education for the students in Marshalltown?
We're going to go look at those cameras. I like that idea of everything being able to be connected in one place and for the safety of our kids. I just think that's a great use of our efforts.
And actually being able to buzz the kids in at the high school, because I've stood by that door for a while.
Me too.
Yeah, it's.
We had some great student achievements that were recognized, and then I really enjoyed Yesenia's presentation as it
I did
related
too.
to the art.
Yeah, that was good. I like all the different perspectives you bring, Yesenia.
Yeah, you are the most excited person I've met about fertilizer. And that's like, it's great. Like, I really enjoyed it. You had me excited about fertilizer.
You should take a walk around ISU. There's a lot more people than I thought.
Anything for future meeting agendas, anybody wants to bring up?
I do. I have been thinking about it a lot since we had a speaker about it, and then you mentioned it, about the Special Olympics. And I just kind of want to take a dive on what was requested at that time that the speaker talked about, and what is it that's holding us back from doing anything with that as far as Special Olympics, or, I don't know, bringing that forward or being part of it, or what is it that we're missing out? I guess I want more information about it. That was requested.
And I would like maybe some more information about what we're doing as far as a continuum for specialized direct instruction. How does that fit into our co-teaching model? So maybe just a little more explanation on what's actually happening with special education. How do we get this full continuum of services? And that's kind of related, just differently.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Lowry, Faltus, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. We are adjourned.